today, Evan's extremely sick, and I have absolutely no sleep in me. I'm on 4 shots of espresso and a coffee. So it's going to be a wonderfully fun episode. I'm sober again because it's 9:45 in the morning.
What is this thing? Who does this?
Evan doesn't know how to work technology, which is nothing new.
None of this makes sense to me. Why does it keep dying? You know what?
He's using an Amazon Kindle. Why does documents not take me to my Google Docs? I'm like, I don't know, maybe because it's taking you to your documents on your Amazon Kindle. It didn't just randomly come with pre-built fucking docs.
It makes sense to me. Why wouldn't it? I don't understand why it's... I got this... I spent fucking $70 on this tablet.
It's not a Google product. It's
whatever.
An Amazon
I don't
product.
care. The point is I spent $70 on this tablet, and every time I open up Google Docs, it crashes. That's bullshit, Kindle. That's bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know why it's crashing, but... the fact that it didn't come with Google Docs is, I thought, common sense, but
whatever.
Evan did grow up in a church cult.
I don't know any of that. And also, why do we have such shitty luck with tablets?
Because you buy them.
This was an Amazon Kindle. I went all out on this one, okay? All out, Paul. I got the plum color and everything.
It is a nice color.
Still shit.
So, rather than telling you about my week, I'm going to tell you about my horrible fucking dream I had last night because I don't have anything exciting this week.
So excited. Trigger warning. I will be sniffing and breathing heavily into this the entire time.
Yeah, so you're going to get to enjoy that.
Go ahead.
So last night, besides the fact that David woke me up at 4 a.m. because he thought someone had broken into the house, and he walked around naked with his baseball bat in hand, which I'm sure would have been terrifying if somebody had broken in the house. A fucking pink baseball bat with a naked man walking around holding it.
Of course you have a pink baseball bat. Go ahead.
So yeah, that took me forever to get back to sleep. And then when I went back to sleep, I had a dream that I was in an airplane sitting in the emergency exit, the emergency spot, and the plane fucking starts free falling 4,000 feet, and my face was pressed against the fucking window because it was just diving.
Oh, wow.
And the fucking pilot, Denise... So if you ever get on a plane and they're like, our pilot today is going to be Denise, get the fuck off that plane because she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing.
This is why we don't let women fly planes.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Just women named Denise in particular. I don't know why her name was Denise. I just remember that. But yeah, I woke up before we hit the ground, luckily. Don't know why the plane was just free falling. I don't know if it was hacked or if it was just I was in a Boeing for some reason. I don't know what was going on, but it was terrifying. So I didn't sleep at all last night. That's why I'm on so much caffeine right now.
Wow, I'm so sorry for you. I just keep having dreams that someone is trying to take away my dog, Stewie.
Oh my God, just let it happen.
No, Hitchcock, nobody is, but I have had incredible panic dreams in the last few months of it's either we're running somewhere and someone's chasing us and I can't get Stewie, or the house is burning and I can't get Stewie out of the house, or someone has stolen Stewie, specifically Stewie. I have a lot of anxiety about Stewie.
Oh, it should just happen. Not the house. I don't want him to get killed, but he could just disappear and be fine somewhere else.
Oh, you're such a bitch. Nobody likes Stewie. He's a damaged dog that...
No, he looks like that Steven dog.
That what?
That, you don't know what I'm talking about?
No, don't pull it up. I also, don't be shitting on my dog, okay? He is really cute.
He looks like this. Come around and look.
I can't come all the way around there.
This is fucking Stewie. This is all I think about every time I look at Stewie.
From that meme?
Yes.
Okay, whatever. Stewie is my baby, okay? I got him during a really hard time in my life, and he understands me. And maybe some of my anxiety got projected onto him. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm like a bad parent who then later got better, but you're still damaged your child.
Story of my life.
Exactly, right? I just perpetuated that generational trauma onto my dog. Basically. So now I'm trying to help him back to where he needs to be. But he was already so broken before that because he spent a year and a half in a home and whatever. Anyways, that's my scary dreams. But otherwise, I slept great. I got the new Z-Quill, which is it's a NyQuil. Yeah. It's all the just sleeping stuff.
I've been taking melatonin. I've had some real interesting dreams.
Melatonin never makes me dream.
Really? Hang on. Sorry if it's getting crazy. I'm trying to adjust my mic. Yeah, I had a dream that I made like a Jello baby out of an acorn. So like I cut the top of an acorn off, and then I put it inside this Jello that's shaped
Egg.
like a baby body, like a 2-year-old's body, without hands. It just had little nubs, and I put the acorn on top of its head, and then it turned alive. Its name is D. I've had a lot of interesting dreams lately. Don't remember all of them, but I just remember. Oh, I had a dream that I was I woke up from a dream and I was still dreaming.
Oh, those are the worst.
And then I woke up in real life and I was like, "What's real?" I was
Yeah,
like, "Is this?"
you don't know.
I was like, "Am I gonna wake up again? What's happening?"
Yeah, you have no clue what's real and what's not. Yeah, no, those are the worst. Or like when you wake up but you know you're still dreaming and you're like you're dreaming, but you can't wake up. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 milligrams of melatonin.
Oh, well, that's why. Who the fuck is taking 20 milligrams? What are you doing? Just downing half the bottle?
No, it's 2. They're 10 each.
What? I don't think you're supposed to take 2.
There's no OD
10 is
limit.
1.
I looked it up.
Okay. I mean, you can't really die from melatonin.
But I wanted to experience some crazy dreams. So let me tell you, 20 milligrams of melatonin, that'll
you
do
could
it
also
for you.
just take mushrooms or, smoke some. Well, I guess the weed wouldn't be effective from the 2 times that you've taken it in your life strictly for medicinal purposes.
I've never done that. Medicinal only. Yeah. But today we're talking about an angry lesbian.
Yeah.
My favorite kind of lesbian.
Not to perpetuate a stereotype, but
she's not like every other lesbian out there.
No, she's not. No. Shut up. We do not. That's not true. You know what? Who's one of the funniest people you know? Ellen. Is she an angry lesbian? No. She's a very happy.
Oh, she is absolutely angry behind the scenes. You know she goes back to behind her stand. Who the fucked that up?
No,
go sit down.
She's
right
a
now.
businesswoman.
You
That's
know
who
she is so angry behind the scenes. She comes out on the stage and she's all happy and smiley.
That's
but
bullshit.
You know behind the
Does
scenes.
she know how to get shit done? Yes, she does.
Because she's an angry
because
lesbian.
Any woman who's in charge and takes charge is considered angry and mean. But when men take charge, it's just, oh, he's just being a man.
No,
he's
he's
just
a
doing
fucking
his job.
asshole. So
No. People said the same thing about Oprah because people can't stand that someone could actually be generous and nice and kind. So they have to spin this whole fake story.
I've heard stories of Ellen.
I'm sure there's stories. I'm sure she does her job. You don't run a successful a show that's as successful as that and not step on some people's toes. You have to do that in any business.
Ellen is the next Lizzie Borden.
Shut up. I'm sure there's people that I've fired that would consider me an asshole. I don't think I'm an asshole, but I will.
Oh, I'm sure there's people that I fired that would consider
exactly. It's yeah, if you have to fire someone, they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're a fucking asshole." But the truth is, you were stealing money, so I don't know what the fuck you wanted me to do.
You know what the funniest thing is? The first time I fired someone, I felt so bad, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, "Oh my god, I hope everything's okay." Even though they were fucking me over.
Yeah.
But then the 20th time, I was like, "All right, bye, you're out of here."
Oh god,
hit the road.
Yeah, retail has made me so immune to people, and I had to fire someone recently-ish who had worked for several years for the company, worked with me for several years, and then it turned out they were stealing, and it was just
bye.
Eventually, you're just fuck, you can't trust anybody.
I used to care, and I mean, I'm still very empathetic towards people, but I used to always try to make sure that everybody was had everything in the world.
Yeah.
I just don't care. I'm like, you're out to get whatever you want out of this world. I'm out to get whatever I want out of this world. Good fucking luck, buddy.
I still care.
I still absolutely will help people and care for people, but it's different. I don't know.
I care.
Retail damaged me permanently.
It does. I do care. I still care very much for my employees, but I do reach the point once I find out that you screwed me over,
right.
I'm very much no, I have to let go. Because the same thing you did. When I was younger, I would beat myself up and I would feel so guilty and be like, why didn't I do this? Could I have done something better? And eventually just realize that, people are people, and sometimes people steal because they're on hard times and they don't feel like they have another option. I feel bad for them, but also I can't make that my problem.
Right.
That's
not your
in
problem.
that moment, I have a whole other staff of people. If I don't take care of them, then they don't get to pay and take care of their families. Mm-hmm. So I can't get caught up on you. Anyways. So the whole point is we all can be assholes. That doesn't mean you are an asshole. But was Lizzie Borden an asshole? We don't know. The people would have to decide for themselves.
I don't know. The people who she axe murdered might think she was an asshole.
First of all, you don't know for sure that she axe murdered them. Also, you might be surprised by some of the things that we're going to cover in this episode.
You know what, though? I'm not even going to put that energy out there because somebody's going to come for me if I tell them.
What?
The Russians are going to come for me.
The Russians aren't coming
The
for
Russian
you.
government's going to come for me because we're being spread around on our underground Russian network.
The Russian government does not give a fuck about us.
No.
So many people are taking shots at them right now.
My biggest fear is being axe murdered. Like I've said it for ever since I was like a child. Like that's the way not to go. And David's like, we should move into a house in the woods. And I'm like, you want to move where the axe murderer lives?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, nobody lives in the woods. I'm like, you know who lives in the woods? Axe murderers.
Yeah, they do. They do. I don't know why you're specifically so afraid of that.
I don't know why it's an axe. I could be shot. I would be okay with it.
It
I could be
takes
stabbed.
so much energy to kill someone with an axe.
That's the problem. It's
much.
a fury and anger thing, I think, where it's so much more traumatic than like
well,
anything else.
That's one of the reasons why Lizzie Borden wasn't convicted, which, spoiler alert, if 130 years later you don't know that Lizzie Borden wasn't convicted, because people are like, it's just like the strength to do it,
The anger, the fury, like that's what scares me, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Extreme
if you're
anger
killing
behind
someone with an axe, you
Right.
have to have anger. But you know what? If they're using that much anger, you're probably going to die on the first or second blow.
I don't know about that. Depends on where they hit you.
It does. Well, I think Lizzie Borden's parents died pretty quickly because the person was not fucking around.
Well, they say after you die, your brain technically. Well, I guess that's only decapitation. If your brain gets fucking smushed.
Yeah,
then-
if your brain's supposed to, it's only if like your head gets cut off.
All right, we gotta go.
All right,
Let's do this.
So, I do want to throw out a trigger warning. Obviously, we're going to talk about violence.
It's October, people. Get ready for it.
Exactly.
Trigger warning for the whole month.
All of October will include lots of violence. It will include rape. It will include incest. It will include
Murder.
gruesome topics.
Demons, ghosts, possessions. I don't know, maybe. Anything you could ever imagine.
We'll also talk about demons and ghosts and all kinds of things. So all of October, there's a big trigger warning, and specifically for this episode, everything that was mentioned except for the demons and ghosts. Trigger warning. If you don't want gruesome, if you don't want talk of incest or abuse, you shouldn't listen to this episode. But if you're set,
we have 70 other episodes for you to listen to.
Exactly, we do. Go back and listen to our recent, talk about history of polyamory and monogamy. That's good. All right, you want to start or you want me to start?
I'll start. Now that we're already 13 minutes in.
I told you.
Today we cover an individual who is more an icon of queer pop culture than an actual figure of queer history. The infamous angry lesbian Lizzie Borden. And this is not to say that Lizzie was not gay or bisexual. There is certainly some evidence which we will produce for the listener to decide for themselves. However, Lizzie's true role in queer history is a dark legend and a wistful fantasy. The mystery of her sexuality is almost as hotly debated as the mystery of her parents' death. And so for more than a century, the whispers of a lesbian axe murderer have filled the halls of queer spaces, spilled onto the pages of queer erotica, and even graced the screens of queer cinema. Now let us begin the tale of the mistress of Maplecroft, which is a fucking sexy name for a town.
Maplecroft isn't the sound. That's the name of her house.
Oh,
later
that's
in life.
I'm
right. It's a
I'm
great
using
name.
that as a name for like a town and something.
I would love it. Yeah, the mistress of Maplecroft. It is really sexy. And then I do want to add that there's very little evidence, which we'll talk about, of her sexuality, but she has become like this icon in queer culture.
I'm writing that down.
He's literally writing
that
it
is
down,
a
folks.
beautiful
He's
name.
like, I want that name, Mistress of Maplecroft.
That's my drag name.
So Andrew Jackson Borden, which pause right there. The fact that your name is Andrew Jackson should be like, this guy's probably an asshole. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but probably.
Just a small hint.
Andrew Jackson Borden struggled to make ends meet as a young man. Despite inheriting a small estate from his father, he had little financial stability. This changed after some prudent investments in the textile and manufacturing industries, and by the time Borden was middle-aged, he had earned a small fortune and bought a large estate at 92 2nd Street. However, he was a frugal man and refused to install electricity and indoor plumbing or add many of the luxuries he could very well afford. It was very weird. Andrew Jackson Borden, he was just odd. He very wealthy, which I'll mention in a moment, and but refused to spend his wealth. But then he would, on the other hand, he would all of a sudden do these very huge random acts of monetary kindness. Like he'd give someone a house or something, but then otherwise he wouldn't like put a fucking bathroom in his house.
You know, the thing that I've learned is that people who are really wealthy, I mean, I'm not talking about like billionaires, you know, but I'm talking about people who are very well off. They very rarely flaunt it.
No, yeah.
They're the ones who are walking
Unless
around in
you're
regular
Donald Trump.
clothes. It's the right. I mean,
Right.
like that's what I mean. Like unless you're like ultra wealthy, but the people who are very well off, you would never know that they're very well off.
Yeah.
It's the people who are like somewhat well off, but not really well
Yeah.
off. They want to try to flaunt it to
Keep
prove
it up
something.
appearance.
Right. Exactly. But the people who are really well off, but not like millionaire, billionaire, buy whatever they want status, like you'd never know.
Yeah. Well, I also think there's a difference between the people that earn their fortune and the people that inherit their fortune.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So there was a lot of talk because Borden's family was wealthy, but yet he didn't inherit that for whatever reason. I don't know. He just like he got a little bit of money to get him going, but it was very little. Like he sold fish on a fish market for years.
Jesus,
like he was
that'd
not.
be a horrible. Imagine how smelly that must
How
be.
disgusting that is, especially in the 1800s. Yeah, it was awful. So this was not a man like he built himself. But by then, the estate alone was worth over $300,000 at the time of Borden's death, and estimated $8 million by today's standards. The deliberate unsanitary conditions would cause many problems in the future, and could have even contributed to the death of Andrew's first wife, Sarah.
We do not know when Sarah and Andrew were married, but in 1851, they brought their first daughter into the world, Emma Lenora. 9 years later, on July 19th, 1960, Lizzie Andrew Borden was born. She had the middle name Andrew. She was pissed. Her name was Lab. Her initials were Lab. Her father gave her his name when it became apparent he would not have a son, most likely because of Sarah's declining health. Sadly, just a few years later, Sarah Borden would die after a slow progression of spinal disease and uterine congestion caused by unsanitary conditions, probably.
Yep.
Which was common for women who had borne more than one child during this time period. The unsanitary conditions of the time and uncleanliness of the Borden house certainly did not help. 3 years after Sarah's death, Andrew remarried in 1865 to Abby Gray. The Borden sisters struggled with their relationship with their stepmother. Though Lizzie was only 5 years old when Abby came into the picture, she grew up convinced that Abby had only married Andrew for his wealth. It seems likely that Emma, who was 14 when the couple married, most likely instilled this thought into Lizzie. Regardless, the three women fought often, and for the last part of Abby's life, Lizzie and her stepmother hardly spoke, even though they lived in the same house.
And the time period is a little hazy because like I heard that like Emma was 14 when Abby came in the picture. She may have been 15 or 16, and that only matters because of events later on. But just putting that on there, if the timeline doesn't seem to fully match up, that's because I got a lot of conflicting. Like I used the internet, I used the book, The Fall River Tragedies. There's a new book out, which will be in our references later on that I tried to get, but I couldn't. But my timeline jumped all over the place. So, we know that Emma was a teenager when her mother died and when her father remarried. And that definitely, I mean,
Oh my God.
Oh, it's
Teenagers
so much, right?
with a new parent. Oh,
The worst.
Good luck. See, I had a different situation. I was a little bit older when my mom met my stepdad, but my younger sisters really, I mean, my middle sister especially really struggled and still struggles to like, I think it was just that teenage rebellion. You know,
yeah.
like it's hard.
You're not my real dad.
Yeah, exactly. You can't tell me what to do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that whole thing.
Same thing. My mom, my oldest stepsister was, I think, 13 when my mom married my stepdad. And same thing. Like, she and my mom fought constantly. The rest of us were fine. Like, you know.
Who is this person? Like,
Exactly.
You weren't around. You don't know what's
Exactly.
going on. Who the fuck are you?
Right. Yeah. Like, her parents had been divorced for 8 years. There was no way in hell they were getting back together. But my stepsister was convinced that, like, my mom was the reason that they weren't going to get back together. It's just teenagers being teenagers. But it adds to the tension. And when you're a young kid and you grow up and your older sister hates your stepmother, you grow up hating your stepmother.
Absolutely. Also, this is completely unrelated, but if your significant other is cheating on you or leaves you for another person or something like that, it is not that other person's fault.
Right?
Do not attack the other person. Do
The
not
new
try
person
to,
in the relationship, you mean? Yeah.
Do not try to make that other person's life miserable. They did not steal your person from you. Your person left you because they were not interested in you anymore. The relationship was over. Just throwing that out there.
You're being very... You're using the same word, so it's a little confusing to follow you, but I think I know what you're saying.
If you get cheated on, it's not the other person's fault.
The person that they cheated on you with?
Okay, so...
Use some names.
If you are dating someone, the person and that person you are dating cheats on you.
It's not the person that they're having an affair with fault.
Right.
It's the fault of the person they're having an affair with. Yeah.
It is your spouse's fault.
Exactly.
So do not try to find this person on the street and beat them. Do not try to follow them around in their car. Do not try to like attack them. Do not drag them on social media. They're not a homewrecker. Your spouse is a cheater.
Exactly.
It's their fault. It's the spouse's fault.
That's true. I don't know what this has to do with the
I don't
episode,
know, but just
Paul
hear,
just
well,
wants
when
to
you
put it
said
out
it was like your sister.
Oh, my sister was like convinced that they were going to come back. Yeah.
It's not the other person's
It's
fault.
always blaming someone else other than the people that are actually at fault.
Exactly.
Because we don't want to believe that the person we love could hurt us like that. You know.
That's how it is.
Paul just doesn't give a fuck this morning.
I didn't sleep. I'm running on a lot of caffeine.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready to fight. Denise fucking pissed me off trying to class my plane.
God damn it, Denise. All right. So as a young child, Lizzie was known to be lively and a bit eccentric. She did well in school, but for some reason, she did not go off to college. Again, this despite her family's wealth and ability to send her to any school in the country, which allowed women, of course. There are a lot of...
She could have went to the same college as...
The Wellesley?
Yeah, she could have went
She could have.
And she would have fit right in.
Yeah. There are a lot of speculations about why Lizzie never left home. And honestly, that's going to be one of the biggest things that we're going to cover here. We're not going to talk much about the trial. I think I put one paragraph on the trial. There's a lot of good information about the trial. You can go read about it. But there's so much about the information. We're going to talk more about like why she wouldn't have left home and like what led up to all this. So there's a lot of speculation. Some of the most prominent center around Andrew's control of his daughters. Many have speculated that Andrew was abusive. Others have proposed that his daughters were merely lazy and spoiled. Another strange thing which adds to the speculation is that both Lizzie and Emma never married and never seemed to have any serious prospects. However, there are also some practical answers for these questions. For one, even with the families of wealth, a woman going to college in the 1880s and 90s was extremely rare. And as for a lack of suitors, some have attributed to the shortage of men following the Civil War. Though, men who were Lizzie's age would have been born after the war, and we wonder why no one wanted to get in on the Borden fortune. So people are like, well, there was a shortage of men, but Lizzie was born in 1860, and all the guys who were her age, I mean, normally you would marry someone who's older, but even then, there was a shortage of men. There was. And Lizzie was not...
The wealth alone would have drawn enough, though.
Exactly. Lizzie was not especially attractive, but she wasn't ugly. She was just considered a very plain woman. But
but it's not like wealthy. She was a regular woman on the street. Yeah,
like exactly.
Regular
She's from a wealthy family.
Exactly. There would have been plenty of people just trying to get in on the fortune
Exactly.
alone.
I can't imagine anyone didn't want to increase their status. So there's something. It has to be something else at play. Could have been 1,000 reasons.
She was an angry lesbian. As the daughters grew older, the tension between them and their parents grew as well. Both girls regularly accused Andrew of wasting their inheritance. Andrew bought houses for his wife Abby's family members, so Emma and Lizzie demanded he buy them a house, which he did. But he did so in a poor part of town where the girls refused to live.
He's like, well, fine, I'll buy you a fucking house. Here's one in Gary, Indiana. Go live there.
Right? Instead, they rented out the space, and eventually Andrew bought it back from them. Another rare gesture of monetary kindness extended by Andrew was when he funded a trip for Lizzie to travel with a group of women to Europe. But these gestures seem few and far between.
But also women hung out together, like... I mean, maybe something happened. Maybe they went out and they just had a real sexy trip to Europe. Or maybe just there was a group of women that went to Europe. Also, I heard that he funded it, but then he... I could not find confirmation of this, but he funded it, but then she spent all her money, so she couldn't get home. But he refused to send her money to send her home, so then Emma had to, find money to get Lizzie home. I don't know if that's true.
That would be hilarious. However, it isn't like Lizzie and Emma were living in a squalor. They had status in the community and attended the theater regularly. Both girls also would have been more than welcomed on the local socialite scene, but Lizzie especially declined the open invite. In truth, she seemed more comfortable at home on the farm with animals.
So, and this is a really hotly debated story. The Borden family raised a coop of pigeons, and Lizzie was especially known to care for them. However, she later testified that she only saw the pigeons as livestock and not as pets. Her view of the animals mattered greatly because one day Andrew Borden went into the coop and killed all the pigeons with his bare hands, wringing their necks one by one. The full reason is not known, though it was speculated that Andrew did it as a punishment to Lizzie. So a couple things about this. First of all, Andrew was just a weird guy. Like there was a story that he would always walked around in a big overcoat, even in the middle of summer. He wore this overcoat. He was just a weird man. He's very private. He's kind of isolated on his estate, and he went in there so. There's a movie out called Lizzie. It was released last year. It has Kristen Stewart and Chloe Sevigny, whatever. I don't know her name, but she plays Chloe. Whatever plays Lizzie, and Kristen Stewart plays Bridget the maid, which we'll get to. And but in the movie, Andrew goes in there and he hacks off all the pigeons' heads with a hatchet. But that's not true. He wrung their necks out, which I don't know is more terrifying, to slowly strangle a whole coop of pigeons.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, right? Like, just to go in there, I don't know if it's supposed to be more humane, but I would think...
What level of rage is that, though?
Exactly. And use as punishment. So he used that to punish Lizzie. So Lizzie was trying to tell when she got on the trial that came up, and she tried to say, look, they were just livestock. But if he uses it as punishment against her, the pigeons must have meant something to her.
Yeah.
I don't know. So this was right around the time that Lizzie was accused of stealing her stepmother's jewelry and pawning it. It was also around the time that Lizzie was cut off from using the Borden credit line in downtown Fall River. Before the days of credit cards, clerks in stores would keep a written list of items added to credit and then send a bill to the customer at the end of the month. Gossip over Lizzie's exclusion from the credit line swirled around the town, along with other stories of the strange Borden sisters. To say there was strong dysfunction in the family is an understatement. It seemed that four people who could hardly stand each other were stuck in an old house, an old and outdated house. And what could add more to the tension than the arrival of a new maid?
Bridget Sullivan was a 25-year-old immigrant from Ireland who had taken the newly opened position as maid of the Borden household. There have been extensive rumors and stories about Bridget and Lizzie having an affair. So much so that last year the movie Lizzie was released, starring the people that Evan mentioned.
Which I would... So, Kristen Stewart, I am so conflicted on Kristen Stewart because I find her so incredibly sexy, but I cannot stand her fucking acting. It's just so awful. Do you know who Kristen Stewart is?
She's fine. Leave her alone.
She's not, but she's, god damn it, she's so fucking hot. And she just she only could play one character. It is...
You know what? Some people play one character very well.
She's always this confused, troubled woman. And every
that would be my role
movie,
if I was
it's the
an
same
actor.
thing where she's just like, I don't know. I'm
doing
the best I can.
Paul Hobbs is confused man, number one. I would be great at that.
Dude, it's just a one character. They keep finding roles for her. Agent is fucking brilliant. He's like, hey, you got a troubled woman, Kristen. You need to slide right in here. And I can't stand it, but I also cannot look away from her. I'm going to go see the new Charlie's Angels specifically because I want to see Kristen Stewart run her fingers through her hairs, and I'm going to get all fucking tingly, and I'm not going to be able to stand anything coming out of her mouth, but god damn it, she's hot. Anyways, go ahead.
So the entire plot centers around this forbidden love story, which has been told in queer circles for decades. Sadly, there is not a shred of evidence to support this romance. While it does seem that Bridget pitied Lizzie, the two were far from lovers. The roots of this rumor dated back to the 1985 fictional novel Lizzie, with an exclamation point, by author Evan Hunter, a.k.a. Ed McBain, in which Hunter lays out a torrid and steamy romance between the two women before they are discovered by Lizzie's stepmother, Abby. This revelation ultimately pushes Lizzie to kill her parents to save her secret, but Hunter admitted that he fabricated the affair based on other events in Lizzie's life and not because there was any information to support this notion.
Yeah, but the movie is... we'll talk about it at the end of the episode. But you do get to see Kristen Stewart in all her lesbian glory. So, I mean, I guess what do you want to sacrifice for it? That's the question. So as is the case with most prominent and wealthy women of this era, if they weren't married by the ripe old age of 21, the rumors began to swirl.
I mean, you only lived till about 40 at that time.
That's true. That's always a good point to remember.
You're like a middle age at that point.
Exactly. Like, yeah, over the hill. So, and if a woman never married, then she was almost certainly a lesbian. While it is fun to speculate on who could be on our team, so to speak, it must be noted that many queer historians did a disservice to the queer community in the 80s and 90s. By slapping the labels of gay or lesbian on any bachelor or spinster they could, historians limited the scope of queerness. Genderqueer folks, non-binary individuals, asexuals, polysexuals, trans people, and bisexuals were often erased or ignored. In addition, many cisgender straight feminists had their stance against the patriarchy and male dominance completely pushed aside. We must remember that marriage for wealthy women was often simply a lifelong prison sentence. Once a daughter was married off, usually to a much older suitor who was not of her choosing, her rights and independence became non-existent. A married woman had no rights over her body, her property, her money, or her children. Her husband could legally beat and rape her as much as he pleased, and any inheritance left to the wife by her family went directly to the husband. In the few cases where a couple divorced, the husband retained everything. So it is no wonder why some women would choose to be alone rather than be bound to even more restrictions than women already endured.
And just to make a note of that, it was not illegal to rape your spouse until, what, 1993?
Yep.
Yeah, so...
And it was legal to beat your spouse until the early 1900s.
Yeah, so 1993,
yeah.
Keep that in mind. And we see the oppression of women also in Bridget Sullivan, as the mystery of the Irish maid is not confined to Lizzie. There have also been rumors of a relationship or sexual abuse perpetuated by Andrew Borden. Again, there is no evidence of this, although it is certainly possible that Borden could have abused his power and forced himself on the attractive young maid. Regardless, we do know that Bridget certainly was not nearly the object of affection she is so often portrayed. Even if she was used as a sexual release, she was still seen as the maid. The family did not even call her Bridget. They called her Maggie, or New Maggie, because the former maid had been named Maggie, and the family couldn't be bothered to learn a new name.
Is that like the most richest bullshit you ever heard?
Yeah.
Like, you're Maggie now.
My name, it's like
I can't say that
Alfred
Irish accent, but
from...
yeah. Alfred, yeah, exactly.
It's
Like,
literally, she's like,
yeah.
my name's Bridget. It's really easy. It's a really white
Sorry,
name.
I'm sorry, Maggie. I can't hear what you're saying.
What, Maggie?
What are you saying to me?
Do you spell it Bridget? Is that Maggie? Maggie?
Like, that's what I said, Maggie. She's like, it's Bridget. I said that, Maggie.
Some have speculated that this was a term of endearment from love of the past maid. Others have insisted Lizzie secretly called Bridget by her real name. But again, there is no evidence for that. In the trial, Bridget would testify she was called Maggie, and all witnesses supported this claim.
Yeah, so it just shows like a complete, again,
dehumanization. Like,
exactly.
You are this thing to us.
Exactly. And that goes to prove that at the end of the day, for all like the sympathy that you want to conjure up for Lizzie and Emma, at the end of the day, they were just two rich girls who were spoiled. Whether Lizzie killed her parents or not, like the sympathetic character, I'm not fully getting that. I do think there was some reason, but not really. Mm-hmm. So the basis for all these theories stem from the motive behind the murders. If Lizzie Borden did murder her parents, then why? Was it for wealth? Was she worried Andrew had cut her and Emma out of the will or significantly reduced her inheritance? The women's Uncle John Morse claimed that Borden had drawn up a new will that did just this, limit their inheritance. However, the new will was never found, and suspiciously, John also claimed that he had been appointed power of attorney for the will and the women's trust fund. He also was a raging alcoholic. So he's like, no, listen.
John Morse was definitely the murderer.
That is a theory that John Morse.
He's claiming all this stuff. He's like, no. There was a will that they weren't supposed to be in it, and I was supposed to take over all their wealth. He clearly did it.
This is all mine, and also it said in the will that Maggie could be my mistress. So that's what it said, and I read it with my own eyes, and then I threw it in the fire so nobody else could find it.
Right, exactly. Clearly, hello. Did anybody try this man?
No, it wasn't.
He was the murderer. I just solved an age-old mystery. You're welcome, everyone.
Oh, good. Thanks, Paul. 130 years later, it never crossed anybody's mind.
I guess not, because...
Anyways, Or did Lizzie murder her father to protect her lover Bridget from abuse? Whatever Bridget's ties to the case, one thing sticks out. After her arrival, tensions in the family escalated. This could be due simply to coincidence or poor timing, or there could be a more sinister reason at play.
And there is the assumption that Andrew Borden's control and abuse of his daughters became too much. Author Marcia
Carlisle.
Author Marcia Carlisle of American Heritage magazine proposed that Lizzie and her sister Emma suffered from battered woman syndrome. Carlisle suggested that after Lizzie's birth, her mother was most likely on bed rest for her final 2 years of life. This is due to the uterine congestion she was diagnosed with and the usual debilitating and painful progression of the disease. Because of this, Andrew Borden might seek to find sexual release somewhere else, and being a wealthy and prominent member of a small town, as well as extremely private, Borden would have avoided houses of prostitution, instead focusing on his then 12-year-old daughter, Emma. And once Emma had gone off to boarding school or became more independent, he could have turned to Lizzie.
Again, this is purely based off of, building a maybe. But you do have to wonder, what pushes a woman to do this? To say it's purely for wealth just seems a reach. Again, there is no evidence for this abuse other than the pure rage shown in the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. If Lizzie felt her stepmother knew of the abuse and ignored it, that could further explain why she so bitterly hated Abby. In the final years of Abby's life, Lizzie would publicly and aggressively correct anyone who called Abby her mother. Even at her trial, Lizzie refused to use that term in reference to Abby. However, as is often the case of children abused in incestuous relationships, her feelings towards her father were mixed. At moments, she was especially gentle with him, even gifting him a beautiful ring which he always wore. Yet in other moments, she openly despised him. Further circumstantial evidence is pointed to Andrew's choice of the house on 2nd Street.
Borden bought this home 7 years after marrying Abby. It was essentially a two-family dwelling, and Andrew never did anything to change this. The girls could have their own side, quite separated from Abby and Andrew. Some could see this as the Borden sisters gaining a little independence. Abby would have been 22 or 23 years old, but Lizzie was still only 12 or 13. Others could see it as Andrew's attempting to diffuse the rising tension between his wife and daughters. But still, people proposed that Andrew did it so he could more easily continue his abuse of Lizzie and Emma without being caught by Abby. However, we cannot discount the age-old tie between abuse and homosexuality, where psychologists like Sigmund Freud erroneously pointed that all homosexuality stemmed from childhood abuse, and thus the rumors of a lesbian axe murder would certainly fit the idea that she had been sexually abused. False psychology aside, one must wonder why both Lizzie and Emma never entertained marriage, and if she did kill Andrew and Abby, why?
And about the, where was I at? Oh, and another thing about the house. The house was just weird. I mean, obviously it's outdated and Andrew never did anything to fix it. But the corridors and passages, which you can visit today in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Let's do it.
If you want to go there. Yeah, you could visit. It was just a weirdly laid out house. And also everybody kept their doors to their bedrooms locked. Everybody did except for Bridget, who was not allowed to lock her door. So, but yeah, so it was just everything in the house was strange. Why they caught, I don't know. Marcia Carlisle wrote this stirring paragraph in her article, "What Made Lizzie Borden Kill?" No single disorder is enough to make a case for a family at war with itself. But viewed as a pattern, the long time absence of a wife or mother, the ages of the girls at the time of their mother's illness, the autocratic father, the isolation of the family, the failure of the family to bond as a unit when the new Mrs. Borden moved in, the timing of the move to the new house, the structure of the house, the special relationship between Lizzie and her father, the tensions between both daughters and the stepmother, all these together suggest long-standing structural flaws that could have led to the family violence and to the murders. Even the way in which the killings were committed seems telling. All the hatchet blows directed at Mr. Borden were aimed at his face. As the prosecuting attorney described it in his closing argument, the hand that held the weapon was not the hand of a masculine strength. It was the hand of a person strong only in hate and the desire to kill. Carlisle continued, Dr. Judith Herman, a leading authority on the father-daughter incest, helped one group of adult women through the healing process recently. The median age in the group was Lizzie's age at the time of the murders, 32. The majority were white, educated, and unmarried, and had suffered some degree of amnesia about the incest. Many were engaged in the helping professions, today's counterpart to the church activities that were important to Lizzie in the 1890s. So it's just there was a lot of studies, and I put a link obviously in the script to the American Heritage Magazine article. It's not so much that I don't know how much basis it's in, but the article as a whole was really about battered women syndrome, and it was really interesting. She cited a lot of cases of similar instances of young women who killed their parents because of the incestuous relationship. So it was really interesting.
And we do know that Lizzie, despite her social anxieties, was active in these so-called helping professions. She was the secretary and treasurer of the Christian Endeavor Society. She also joined the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and she became a Sunday school teacher at her local congregational church, teaching a group of newly immigrated children. This was the woman who woke up on August 4th, 1892, and joined her family for breakfast, after which Andrew Borden went on his morning walk, Abby relaxed in the sitting room, and Bridget was ordered to wash the windows. It was an incredibly hot day, and it seemed cruel to ask Bridget to do such a task. In addition, the entire family, Bridget included, were suffering from a stomach virus. This was most likely due to Andrew's stinginess. He had brought home a leg of mutton and forced the family to eat every last bit, which took them several days. Since Andrew refused to invest in any modern conveniences, there was no icebox for the mutton, which means the family had been eating 5-day-old meat which had been sitting out. In addition, there were no restrooms, though he could have paid for them. Instead, the family was still using buckets in their rooms. So everyone is puking in the backyard, shitting in the buckets upstairs, and eating rotten meat. And then she's like cleaning the windows. I just imagine, like, if Family Guy did this, I can just imagine that, like, they would have her out there, like, wiping the window and then vomiting on the window and wiping the window and then vomiting on the window. Like, that's something that would be very Family Guy.
Well, she did keep, like, climbing down the ladder and puking in the backyard. I mean, it's just like the whole estate is just filled with manure.
Imagine
and
how horrible
things.
that
just
smelled.
Disgusting. Which part of it is the 1800s, but also you're a wealthy man and you can afford something else. And like just the fact that he's making everybody, and like 2 days earlier they had all gone to the doctor and been like, we're sick, and they're still eating this fucking mutton. You know,
that's just, I can only imagine how it smelled.
Oh, awful. And then just like, why even have her wash the windows when you have shit and puke in your yard?
Right.
But whatever. So it is no wonder then that Bridget felt ill, and after Andrew left, she went to her room and lay down. Like, fuck you, Andrew. I'm watching the windows on the hottest day of the year. Sometime between 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m., Abby Borden went up to her room. Now, I didn't put it in there, but there was speculation that she got a message, because Lizzie would later say that Abby got a message saying she was to visit someone, and so that's why she went up to her room. Maybe she just went up to lay down because she's sick from the fucking mutton or whatever. But there she was either met or followed by her killer, who proceeded to whack Abby 18 times with the hatchet. The first hit was to the side of Abby's face, and after she fell, 17 more blows were delivered to the back of her head. Around 10:30, Andrew Borden returned. His key wouldn't work, and he began banging and screaming for Bridget. When she arrived, she found the door jammed, and as she struggled to open it, she cursed, at which time she heard Lizzie laugh, but the laugh was coming from upstairs near Abby's room. Once Andrew was in, he went straight to the sitting room. Lizzie came in shortly, offering him some tea and gave him a pillow so he could lie down. Between 10:30 and 11, the killer returned with the hatchet and struck Andrew Borden 11 times in the face. At 11:10 a.m., Bridget heard Lizzie scream and cry, "Maggie, come quick, father's dead. Someone's came in and killed him."
Police were called to the scene, and initially only one officer was on duty, as it was the town's annual picnic. And fuck that. I'm eating my fucking food. I don't have an icebox at home, and I'm not getting sick like the Borden, so I'm eating my lunch at the picnic.
I'll get there when I get there. Let's go see what the ruckus is about.
But once Abby's body was also found upstairs, the officer hurried for backup, bringing a large crowd with him. Police searched the house but could find no other significant evidence, though they did find the handle of a hatchet, just not the head.
Yeah, in the basement there was a couple hatchets and there was a random handle that had been freshly cut.
They were a bit put off by Lizzie's calm manner. Bridget was almost hysterical, yet Lizzie seemed very reserved and uncaring. Her clothes were pristine, almost oddly clean, But most suspiciously was her conflicting story. She couldn't get her times right. She insisted she hadn't been upstairs, and then later she said she had. She told officers she had removed Andrew's boots, but he died with them on. She couldn't explain where she was when the murders happened, and then she said she was doing some ironing. Nothing added up.
Yeah, it was just one strange story after another. She said that Abby, I didn't put them all in here again because I didn't put a lot about the actual murder because there's so much out there. But like she said that Abby had been called away with a message, and then she said she didn't know where Abby was. She said, I thought she left and she came back home. And also I didn't add in here, but Emma wasn't here for any of this. Emma had gone a few days earlier to go visit friends out of town. So the town seemed at once convinced that Lizzie Borden was a killer. A few days after the murder, neighbor Alice Russell witnessed Lizzie burning a blue dress with blood on it. However, Lizzie had been menstruating at the time of murders and claimed this was a reason. Again, this is 1890, so it's not like you have a lot of sanitary napkins. Mm-hmm. The suspect had a reason for everything, but it never quite fit. Regardless, after only an 11-day trial and only 90 minutes of deliberation, a jury found Lizzie Borden not guilty. In truth, the jurors later admitted they immediately found her not guilty, but waited an hour out of respect for the process. They walk in, they're like, you think you're guilty? No, I don't. All right, well, let's just sit here and play a game of gin rummy. The real reason behind Lizzie's acquittal lies in the expert testimony of Dr. Bowen. I do not believe a hardened man of the world, much less a gentle and refined woman in her sober senses, devoid of sudden passion, could strike such a blow with such a weapon as was used on Mr. Borden and linger to survey the bloody deed. So basically, she was just too nice and gentle of a woman to be able to commit such a gruesome murder.
Even though clearly smashing someone's face in with an axe is a crime of passion.
Right, exactly.
That's not like, a murder would have been like slicing them in the neck and one swing to the neck or something like that. This was like they mutilated these people's faces and they stayed there to do it 18 times.
Yeah.
Whoever did this, I think it might have been Lizzie, definitely did it out of anger.
I mean, you could say it's not like she's alive to do anything. She might haunt you. But what I found...
I don't want to be haunted by an axe murderer. No thanks. It's like, that would be even worse than being murdered by an axe murderer. Now I'm haunted by the ghost of an axe murderer.
Right. The biggest correlation that I heard again and again, and there's entire books written on it, was Lizzie Borden's trial compared to OJ's trial, where either you knew for sure Lizzie did it, or you knew for sure she did it. And there was no gray area. Yeah. Everyone was they were shocked. People screamed and gasped whenever it was announced that she had been found innocent. It was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm. The truth is, authorities who had witnessed the gruesomeness of the crime could not bring themselves to believe a woman could do such a dastardly deed, but the rest of the town believed it. Bridget left 92 2nd Street the day after the murder and moved to Montana.
Fuck out here.
But for some strange reason, Lizzie and Emma decided to continue living in Fall River, though they did sell the house at 92 2nd Street and moved to a more affluent area on the hill, the place they had always wanted to live.
That was the rich part of Fall River.
Yeah. They called the place Maplecroft, which has been used in Lizzie Borden fan fiction ever since. Sadly, the sisters would eventually part ways as Lizzie became a bit of a party girl. She drank and hosted parties for those who dared to attend. She also carried on affairs with several men, including a few prominent married men, and in 1897 she was arrested in Providence, Rhode Island for shoplifting.
Yeah, Providence.
South Providence, probably.
Right. But the final straw came when Lizzie began an affair with actress Nance O'Neill. And this is where the basis for Lizzie's sexuality comes into play. Whether she was bisexual, gay, or simply fluid, Lizzie was definitely attracted to women, and her notoriety and wealth landed her a beautiful one, but it cost her relationship with her sister Emma. The Boston Herald reported in June of 1905, after repeated disagreements, Lizzie A. Borden and her sister Emma Borden have parted company. Several days ago, Miss Emma packed up her belongings, calling a moving wagon, and shook the dust of the French Street home, where they have lived together ever since the acquittal in their famous murder trial, from her feet. She is reported to have moved to Fairhaven. Ever since her departure, the tongue of gossips have been wagging tremendously, even for Fall River, which is saying a great deal. All sorts of reasons for the quarrel between the sisters have been afloat, but the best founded ones involve the name of Miss Nance O'Neill, the actress.
We know very little about the relationship, only that Nance had the reputation of being a lesbian and that she was a struggling actress. Lizzie was immediately smitten with the actress, and the two fell in love pretty quickly, though some have suggested Nance was using Lizzie for her money. Either way, for a brief period, Lizzie Borden enjoyed complete sexual freedom and a hot whirlwind romance. Whether she deserved it or not is up for the listener to decide. On June 1st, 1927, Lizzie Borden died at age 68 of pneumonia after gallbladder removal. 9 days later, Emma died as well. She was 76, and the two sisters hadn't spoken in over 20 years. Lizzie's fortune amounted to $250,000, which is over $4 million today, which she left to friends, the Fall River Animal Rescue and the Humane Society, as well as $500 and a perpetual trust for maintenance of her father's grave.
Yeah. So, and it was directly responsible. Like Nance O'Neill, the affair was like Emma went to her minister and he advised her to leave the house because she shouldn't be around that kind of sin. And eventually, obviously, Lizzie and Nance, they didn't stay together forever. It was a brief romance. Whether she had others, we don't know. We only know that because the newspaper and a couple letters from Emma. But that is Lizzie Borden. Your reference for this episode is the new book, The Trial of Lizzie Borden by Kara Robertson, which is considered the definitive biography of Lizzie Borden. It accounts for her sexuality in there and just a host of other things. Or you can skip that and watch the movie Lizzie, released in 2018 with Chloe Sevigny and Kristen Stewart. It's available on Amazon or Shuddered. I have mixed feelings about the movie. It was, in some ways, it like started off really good, and I was like really glad I was watching it, but then it kind of like spun out and it got a little weird, and I'm going to spoil this for you, so I'm sorry. But in the murder part of the movie, Lizzie is completely naked. And it was like they did this whole movie and there's like lesbian sex and everything. And I'm like, good, like a movie about lesbians where you don't have to show the nudity. And then they randomly have both Lizzie and Kristen Stewart get naked to murder the parents just because they're like, oh, well, we almost made a whole movie with two lesbians and nobody got naked. Excuse
Even though
us.
She was burning a blue dress.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
but also, would she have murdered them in a blue dress? Probably not. That seems very not a good outfit for that.
I don't. What is the appropriate outfit for murder?
Something that you can move around in.
Well, they don't wear pants. She's got to wear a dress. Anyways,
I don't know.
So, but and the movie is not historically accurate at all, but it's not bad. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. But that's it. That's your Mistress of Maplecroft.
Mistress of Maplecroft, the angry lesbian axe murderer, and probably the scariest thing that would ever haunt you.
Probably.
So stay queer.
Don't get a lobotomy.
We love you, our little allied hookers.
A little succulent sapphis.
And our homocrats.
So have a sodomy circus.
Goodbye.
Bye.